waiting to start something is not easy. As somebody that was in my Nigerian family that had just finished secondary school, and he couldn't wait to start an apprenticeship, and he was apparently, according to him, rejoicing that that he was soon to start getting some money and being under master years, but somehow independent. And then something happened. He was called back to study and enter university, and eventually he became a medical doctor. But he was confessing that at first this was not his preferred choice. Somebody had to come and rescue him from what would have been a second best. And sometimes we have to wait before we jump, especially at the start of a plan. So this is what happened with Jesus. And usually we don't really talk about this. It is written in the New Testament that there are lots of things that Jesus said and did that are not recorded. Obviously, because you couldn't record everything, but that the verse says that what was recorded was for our guidance and use and to bless us. And so let's look at what happened with Jesus. He was born in Bethlehem. Then he was circumcised on the 8th day, like every boy, Jew. And then at that time he was prophesied upon. And then he continued growing, went to Egypt to escape Herod, then came back with his parents, was in Nazareth. And when he was 12, like every Jew boy, he was brought to the temple in Jerusalem for his bar-mitzva. That is the ceremony that acknowledges that a child boy has reached adult age for relationship to God and the church. And so he was brought to the temple, and after the ceremony where he probably read the Torah for the first time, then he was supposed to return with his parents to Nazareth. It was quite a journey, several days. Then at a point the parents discovered that he didn't return with them. He was not with the relatives as they thought. So they had to return to Jerusalem. They found him in the temple discussing and having conversations with the religious leaders. And they asked him, "Why did you do that?" And he replied, "Didn't you know that I must be in my father's house, in my father's business?" The parents could not understand. But Mary continued meditating on this. And then he returned with them, and it was recorded that he was just obedient. And then he continued growing and stayed with them, the son of a carpenter, as people thought. And he was there until he was about 30. And at that time, his cousin, John the Baptist, was already in the wilderness. John was born, several months before him. So John was in the wilderness preaching as God led him to. And then Jesus came to be baptized. And it's at that point that he started his ministry. After being baptized, he went to the wilderness for a time of preparation. And then he started his ministry. And it is recorded that at that time he was around 30. Which means that for 30 good years, he didn't do anything extraordinary. It was just in his family, and several places in the Bible it's recorded that people didn't know anything else about him. They said, when he started preaching and telling them things, they said, "Well, I thought it was the carpenter's son. Is it not the carpenter's son that we all know, and his brothers and sisters we know? What's happening really? Which means all this time, what was he doing? He was just learning Joseph's trade. He was serving people. He was building furniture and all kinds of things. He was just seemingly an ordinary person. And he waited for 30 years. So there is no need for us to rush. Yes, life is short. But within 3 years, Jesus did more than many people during a whole lifetime. The number of years is not the way to calculate your success. What is the important thing is to know when to start, where to do and go, and when you put your whole life into it, serve God with all your strength, all your mind, all your heart, everything in me, serving God. I remember a boy that was probably just around 20. His parents and uncle prayed for him to succeed, and he went to university. He was in first year university, and all of a sudden he declared that, God had called him to be a pastor, and left university. That thing was not a good sign. You cannot be sent to university and then leave without a degree or diploma, just saying you have been called to be a pastor. Anything that God calls you to do, He will first of all prepare you. He will equip you. He may not give you everything, because obviously He's waiting for you to start, and then He continues equipping you, but He will put something in you first. You cannot go and serve empty. Secondly, your calling has to be confirmed. Not necessarily by the people you think would do, but it will be confirmed. You cannot just on your own say, God called me. If God calls you, there will be signs. There will be confirmation. And I want to urge you, take your time, pray, make yourself available, serve in the little ways where you are, and God will send you. If you say today, I'm available, send me, doesn't mean that tomorrow you go. When I was 12, I offered myself to the Lord and said, I sacrifice myself to you. Take me, do whatever you want with me. And it took years. I finished secondary school. I finished university. I started further studies. And then God picked me and sent me. Be patient and wait for the cloud of glory to lift and start guiding you out. Just like Jesus did. He waited until he was 30.